Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Friday, April the 9th. I'm Gary Stevens. Second Friday of the month. This time it is Ask the Attorney. One of our legal eagles will answer your questions, for the most part, about probate and other non-criminal matters. But when this gentleman joins us from the law office of Kenneth A. Puzycki, can we definitely say, Ken, all bets are off? You're willing to tackle almost any subject?
It's never stopped you in the past, Gary.
395-1450 if you have a question for Ken Puzycki. Yes, probate, business questions, he will be happy to answer. Supreme Court questions, you can give an opinion. But I will say this, and again, this is a little bit of a disclaimer, but out of respect to Ken as well, if you have a legal issue, while we in our conversation might point you in the right direction, we strongly encourage that you retain your own legal counsel or to consult your own barrister, if you want to use a British term, since we are talking about the death of Prince Philip, your own barrister to answer your particular questions.
Absolutely. Good disclaimer.
Yeah.
Good disclaimer.
That way you don't say, well, I listened to Puzycki and he told me this. Well, he doesn't have all of the details. And even sometimes when you do, Ken, you still can't.
That's right.
Can't really answer fully question. And, let's put it this way. The law is also a human instrument. And sometimes, like any human instrument, it can have flaws.
There's always exceptions to the exceptions to the exceptions. So
you got that right.
That also goes for tax advice too.
Which, of course, now it's been pushed back another month because the IRS and then the states doing the same thing, and the counties, not the counties, but the municipalities such as Grand Rapids, Walker, that do charge income tax for the non-residents. They're doing the same because they don't want to seem like, well, you got to pay us first before the feds. That don't make sense.
Well, that's an interesting issue in and of itself, Gary, because take a city like Grand Rapids that charges an income tax. Well, what if you happen to live in Kentwood, but now you telecommute to your downtown office, right?
Yep.
Can they charge city income taxes anymore?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That might be no, I don't know whether or not you'd handle that case. Might be some of the more high profile guys and ladies. Good morning. You're on the line with attorney Ken Puzycki.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead.
I'd like to know why there's a difference between Ottawa and Allegan County as far as elder law, as far as how much money you can have in your bank account. It seems like Allegan is a lot more generous in treating seniors and what is allowed and whether you can get aid and this sort of thing. And then when you after you get done with that one, could you discuss rules of evidence?
All right. Well, get the double question and then thanks for the call. First of all, we'll save rules of evidence for a moment. What the difference is in elder law between Allegan and Ottawa counties?
So what the caller is referring to is not necessarily the law, but the services. Allegan County passed a millage, and everybody contributes to an elder law pool of money. And they provide Meals on Wheels. They provide a lot of assistance to seniors that you don't get on the north side of 32nd Street. So it is a stark difference between Ottawa and Allegan. Ottawa County has not passed that millage, but once you get into Allegan County, seniors really have it good. The caller might also be referring to the different agencies. Medicaid, for example. A lot of what we do is help people qualify for Medicaid without losing all their assets. Each county administers its own Medicaid programs. And so the Ottawa County has its staff and the Allegan County has its staff, and they do things a little differently, but by and large, the laws are the same. They need to be consistent throughout the state. But they each have their quirks, they each have their little nuances. But the laws themselves are the same, but they're just administered differently from county to county.
Now, rules of evidence.
Wow,
Let's put it this way: we do have about 15 minutes of this segment, so it's not. Let's try to give us the Cliff Note version, please.
Well, I think what the caller may be referring to, about 30 years ago, right? We were all glued to the TV screen watching the OJ trial. A lot of people are equally as enthralled with what's going up in Minnesota with the George Floyd trial. And, in order to get evidence in front of the jury, into court, you can't just put everything in there. You have to do what's called laying the foundation. Somebody has to demonstrate that a given photograph is legitimate. Who took it? Where was it taken? In this digital age, how do you prove that digital photograph hasn't been manipulated, right? So before the judge enters anything into evidence and get it in front of the jury, the judge has to be satisfied that the evidence that's being proffered is legitimate. And so what the attorneys have to do is they have to, what they call, lay a foundation as to why the evidence itself is legitimate. Now, it also not only does it have to be legitimate, it has to be relevant to the issues before the court. For example, you haven't heard a lot about Mr. Floyd's prior criminal behavior or criminal convictions. Why? Because they have nothing to do with the murder trial. This is not a character assassination of George Floyd. And that's why you haven't heard anything. Even though we've heard it in the news and we've read it in the papers, it's not going to come out at trial because it has no relevance to the criminal issue presently before the court. So the court has to make a determination whether the evidence is legitimate, but also whether it's relevant to the issues at hand. So I just crammed into a minute and a half about a year and a half worth of law school. I think that's where the caller was coming from, if I'm not mistaken.
Now, our listeners may have heard a little blink. That's the hand raising by Peg McNichol in the newsroom. She has a question for you, Ken.
So it's related. Okay. It's related to evidence because we've had conversations with callers in recent days, and so it may be for this. Oh. So the Dominion case, the lawsuits that Dominion, the voting machine maker, they have filed lawsuits against Rudy Giuliani, Sydney. What's her last name again? She's the attorney who said nobody should take her seriously. Right. But she's made all these accusations against
Not
Dominion.
Sydney Pollack. That's somebody else.
But, So there have been a number of these people who've made outlandish claims. I mean, frightening claims, really, if you think about election manipulation. But there were more than 60 lawsuits that were filed challenging the election related to Dominion and other companies' machines not accurately processing votes. And we have a former state senator here who has now been told by Dominion to cease and desist because he's been taking a presentation around, at least in Michigan, if not beyond, talking about election fraud and claiming Dominion and other companies had, somehow manipulated the election. So what we talked about as far as rules of evidence, people are like, well, he has proof. Well, when you look at Mr. Patrick Kolbeck's website, and he's the one who's gotten this 14-page letter from Dominion, when you look at his website, he's referring all of his proof. When he talks about his proof, he talks about, well, Mike Lindell, the CEO of MyPillow, has it in his video. But if you look at Mike Lindell's video, that also seems to have been debunked. So when it comes to a case like that, where it's not a murder trial, it's more of a civil thing, how does what is that type of evidentiary sort of proof? Like what's the validity of evidence, or I'm not sure of the legal term, but help us understand what that means. Yeah,
and the term is foundation, because what you just described is a crumbling foundation. Allegations were made about the software, And where did those allegations come from? Well, they came from somebody's website. Well, where did that website information come from? It came from Mr. Lindell's video. Well, where did that come from? And the further you go down, the murkier it gets, and there's no foundation for that evidence. So it's actually a very good example of why the court needs to establish a solid foundation. Let's go back to the root of the fact. Who saw it and what did they see? It's not hearsay upon hearsay upon hearsay, which is what a lot of those allegations seem to be. I've not read the complaints, but a lot of the allegations against Dominion seem to be based on things that people say, not actual substantive provable facts. And so the court has to make a determination, is what's being alleged provable? Can you trace it back to a fact that can be proven? And if it can, and if it's relevant, then the court should let the evidence in.
395-1450, 395-1450. If you have a question for Attorney Ken Puzycki of the Law Office of Kenneth A. Puzycki, he'll be happy to answer it right now at 395-1450. And of course, the Law Office of Kenneth A. Puzycki is available on the website. Look for his spelling, PUZYCKI.com. And we'll put a link to it when we put the podcast of our conversation with Ken on our webpage at WHTC.com. Might not be immediately after this is over because we do have the governor coming up in a little bit.
I'll step aside.
Let's talk about another sticky situation that is a civil matter.
Okay.
Although it is, to a certain extent, some might say criminal as well, but it's a civil matter. And I will preface this by using an old line that attorneys like to use, but it does make sense. Fool is his own attorney.
Yeah.
Or seeking legal advice from those who may not be, let's just say, they haven't passed the bar.
Right.
The situation involving Marlena's restaurant and bistro, not getting the right, or maybe getting legal advice from, shall we say, dubious sources. At least it's perceived to be. She now has an attorney fighting for her, but it's a case of, if you've got a problem with a law, have somebody who can be able to do it and be able to fight with you on that.
Right. Oh, absolutely. The term vigilante justice comes to mind. In her mind, she might be right. In her mind, the governor may have overstepped her bounds, but you got to have a legal basis to make those arguments. It just becomes a political quagmire. Whether she's right or she's wrong, there's still the law. And if you, again, to your point, if you're going to challenge the law, but do it legally so that everybody can benefit from the challenge. And if you lose, you lose. But to take things into your own hands is typically not a good idea when it comes to legal things.
Or taking in your own hand, not your own personal hands, but maybe looking for advice from those who may not be as qualified to give that advice.
Right. As common sense as the argument may be, legally speaking, it may not hold up in court.
Peg, you have something else?
Yes. What are the consequences for someone who's giving legal advice who is not this gentleman, Rick Martin from Texas, who's was advising Marlena? She now has a licensed attorney representing her. What are the consequences for someone in the state of Michigan who is providing legal advice and guidance to someone without being a licensed attorney?
Well, the obvious question that comes to my mind is, if he took money, if he accepted payment, then he's engaging in the unauthorized practice of law, and he could go to jail. If he's just offering his opinion for gratis, without any payment, without any solicitation, I don't know that there's anything they can do. Now, somebody could file a grievance with the Michigan State Bar Association, but they don't have jurisdiction over this guy because he's a Texas attorney.
Does the Texas bar have jurisdiction over him if he's doing this in another state?
Actually read my mind. If anything, if a grievance is going to be filed, do it where it hurts him, and that is in the state where he's licensed to practice. And again, whether he was quote unquote practicing law in Michigan is a, it's an interesting issue. But he was giving legal advice. There's no two ways about it. Whether he got paid for it, whether it was for free, he was given legal advice, and he's not allowed to do that in the state, whether it's pro bono or for money. He shouldn't have been doing it. But Texas is the proper place to file a grievance against him, because Michigan, the state bar isn't going to have any jurisdiction over him.
He attempted to make 2 court appearances with Marlena. In both cases, the judges, Judge Stokes and Judge Aquilina, in fact, Judge Aquilina put him in jail till June something or other, 93 days for contempt of court, because he showed up with her as Marlena Pavlos Hackney's advisor. And she made it very clear he's not a licensed attorney, so he has no legal standing to be in the courtroom in that role.
Right. And he could have applied. He could have applied for a temporary permission to practice before the court here, but he didn't. My recollection from first year law school, I think that's pro hoc vice. If I go to New York and I want to represent somebody, I can actually go to court and petition the court for permission to participate in the New York court system. But I can't just walk in and say, "Hey, Judge, I'm representing so and so." It doesn't work that way. You have to have permission first.
To be clear, he makes it very clear on his website he has not attended law school and does not have a law license in Texas.
Oh my! I didn't realize that. So really, the only avenue there then is the unauthorized practice of law, not against an attorney. You can't get him disbarred if he's not barred to begin with. And quite frankly, I'm not really sure what the penalty would be. But he physically came to Michigan, correct?
Yeah, that's what I was told.
Or was it virtual? I still don't know whether it was virtual or whether he physically.
Yeah, Peg's double checking to see, but if he's in the Ingham County Jail, yeah, I think he's there personally.
Oh, he
is in the Ingham County Jail until June, because he did show up to the court appearance that she had with Judge Aquilina, the last court appearance where she also went to jail for a couple of days. But in the Judge Stokes appearance, that he attempted to be virtual. And as soon as Judge Stokes validated that he did not have legal standing, and he filed no legal papers for her, so it's kind of puts her behind the 8 ball, her lawyers catching up. But when Judge Stokes realized he wasn't a licensed attorney, and he kept saying he was advice of counsel, she turned off his video feed to her courtroom.
Yeah, she should have. Yeah, and found him in contempt.
All right, go ahead, Ken.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Give a spiel.
Oh no, I was not going to give so much of a spiel, but the thing is, I do have a caller, and I think wants to join in the conversation. Good morning. You're on the line with Attorney Ken Puzycki.
Yeah, he's got 4 warrants for his arrest in Arkansas, Texas. I heard he's going to be transferred from that county back to Texas because he's got 4 warrants right now. He's looking at 2 to 5 years in prison. That's
that advisor you're talking about there, caller?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're clarified as the one that's currently behind bars in Michigan.
So in the only
he took $10,000 from Marlena.
He did. Well, we'll double check on that one, but Ken.
Yeah. Well, I would say good morning to your caller. I think I know who that is, but I don't know that there's any proof that he was actually paid. I rather doubt it. I think that's a rumor, but it's possible that there may be an extradition an extradition law between Texas and Michigan. I'm not really sure. That's the criminal area that I rather not dabble into.
Yeah, we certainly understand that.
Yeah.
Somebody told me it was in the restaurant.
Yep.
They give her $10,000.
Yeah, we'll double check on that. Appreciate the call. Thank you.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet on that one. But anyways, I was going to mention this whole idea of representation in court. It gets very interesting. I've got a lot of clients who have rental properties, and they set up LLCs or corporations for those rental properties, and they find out the hard way if they have to go to court. Some judges will not let them represent themselves in court because if they own the property as a corporate entity, technically speaking, they have to hire a lawyer. And if they themselves are not lawyers, they cannot represent their LLCs or their corporations. Some judges, if it's a single shareholder company or a single member limited liability company, some judges will let them speak for themselves in court. But a lot of judges will not. They will say, look, you've got an LLC, you have to hire a lawyer, and they force them to hire an attorney to represent them in court.
And that
Good.
just leads me, Ken, to something that I'm not going to say, this is not meant to be a solicitation for the law office of Kenneth A. Puzycki, but I can say, let's put it this way, if you're setting up shop as an LLC or even incorporated, limited, you better have legal counsel available because to set up shop, you need to have that. And B, when you have a situation, just as Ken just mentioned, it's nice to have that retainer. Yes, it might cost a few extra dollars, but let's put it this way, save a little now or spend a lot later.
Yeah, right. Pay me now, pay me later. But you're exactly right. And setting up the limited liability company, a lot of people don't realize it's not just a matter of filing a couple pieces of paper with the state. A lot of people have LLCs registered with the state with no bylaws on file anywhere. And they file the papers with the state and they think they're an LLC. And then when things hit the fan, they find out the hard way that they didn't follow through. And that, to your point, Gary, when you set up a limited liability company, you have to have the underlying operational documents. They call them bylaws, either bylaws or an operating agreement. And that usually requires an attorney. It doesn't have to. You can go on to, some of these online sites have, boilerplate documents, but believe me, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, the legacy of Robert Shapiro we're talking about.
Right.
One of the thing too, and this is more of a, having personal experience on this a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
If you're setting up shop as, you say you want to start a business,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to get a name for the business, well, you got to make sure that name is not taken in the county you're setting up shop.
Right.
Now, it might be taken in another spot. For example, I'll use a great example. There's a Tim's Towing on the north side.
Yep, I know.
There's also a Tim's Towing in Caucaulin, up in Bay County.
Oh,
not the same Tim's Towing.
by the turkey roost.
But that's just it.
Yeah.
Different Tim, but you could set up shop as Tim's Towing in Ottawa County, but if you want to try to go into Bay County, hey, somebody's already got that name.
So you are touching on a very important thing for people that cross county lines. If all you're going to do is do business in Ottawa County, you could probably get by with filing what's called a DBA, a business registration in Ottawa County. But if you want to do work in Allegan County and Barrie County and Muskegon County, you have to file a DBA in every county in which you do business. Now, if you want to do it right, then you incorporate at the state level, and you can do your businesses. You can do your business in any county in the state of Michigan. So, but you're exactly right. I'll bet that the company in Caucaulin is not incorporated in the state of Michigan. I think Tim's Towing is, but it all boils down to confusion amongst the customers, and oftentimes things like Tim's Towing.
I'm just using that as an example because last time I was in that area, I saw Tim's Towing. I thought, when I was up getting some cheese over in County.
I know Tim's Towing is incorporated here. I bet you the one in Caucaulin is not. It may have a DBA on file in Bay County, but I don't think they're incorporated because they would catch that at the state. If two entities had the same name, they would probably catch that at the state and not allow the second one to incorporate.
Attorney Ken Puzycki, I want to thank you very much for joining us today on Talk of the Town. Our segment time is pretty much up. We are butting up towards Governor Whitmer's latest proclamations about the COVID-19 situation. So we'll have that in a few moments. As always, we appreciate your time. We'll put a link to Puzycki.com. That's the website for the law office of Kenneth A. Puzycki, and people can be able to contact you through the website. Ken, take care, and I'll talk to you in a couple of months.
Sounds good. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you
Have a
very
good
much,
weekend.
Ken Puzycki on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.